So should I just share the screen with the...
Sorry, I'm just make you both co-hosts so you can share screens and stuff.
Okay, just let me...
There you go.
So just gonna... So, oh, I did something wrong. 1 second. Okay, so we did have a meeting. I do not know when anymore. Maybe March, April, somewhere like that, where we started discussing, where we had a discussion, a formal discussion on the central admin position. But I think it was very clear very quickly how little, I think, some of the issues were discussed, especially the selection process, but also I think the what would it be to take this position? Because I think even though it's a central administrative position, I think one of the main things that is important to highlight in the idea of the central administrative position is that even if it involves an administrative process like answering emails, checking deadlines, there is a very important distinction, which is the ability to see the workings of the group from the point of view as a whole. So I think this is important not only because this will allow the person occupying the position to see the group from a point of view where there will be like nothing above her or him, but also because there are lots of tasks that are currently done out of like, there's a series of tasks, voluntary tasks that not only are done, I think that's not the problem, but they are done in a like invisible manner. So I think that one of the important steps of this group is to allow the workings of the group, the self-reproduction of the group, to become more visible. So that's why it's not only a matter of doing the things. The central administrator will also have the power to delegate, because I mean, delegating is also important because at least there will be a more visible clarity on the mental strains and mental weights of organizing the group. So this is like, I think the philosophical aspect. It will be very good for the group as a whole, not only for the member. And it also addresses like something that we've talked about, which is the circulation of a point of view of the organization inside the group. Because I think this is something that is important, not only with people, newcomers, but also with people who are in the group for a while, which is there's this idea that there's like things that should be done in certain ways or certain practices, when in fact it's all pretty much decided as we go along, like in the sense that there are decisions that are to be made, and making decisions just like deciding where to go dining, it's never really easy. So in a sense, I think the central admin position also demystifies certain aspects of the reproduction of the group. Well, so one of the things we did, and I think this is just like, this is not the final list, this is something that we did in the meeting. It was, I think, one of the very important points of that meeting where we discussed the CA position. There are potential incumbencies of which the central admin will take. And like I said, it's not simply, it doesn't mean simply that people will take these positions like, oh, they will have to do everything, but they will have to be aware, and they will probably have to delegate many of these positions or determine if they should be reworked or whatever, or if they are to be kept as is, and new tasks that are not here may also be eventually discussed and brought upon the central admin if there is something that we haven't put on the list, but that we find that is important for the working of the group. Nothing stops it from putting in the point of view of the admin. So aside from that, how about decentralized secretary? So we keep the secretary, but I think we can, I agree, we can work out the name. Decentralized admin is very good. So we had, and I think this is like one of the things that will be up for debate, because these are the more practical points besides the tasks, which is, first, this will be a rotating function. And we talked about having a trial run in the beginning. So like a 3 to 6 month trial run. I think we could settle on a date that could be voted. I think that there may be different opinions, but I don't think this is a philosophical question. I think this is more like a practical manner. And I don't think anyone will be too, there won't be too much problem if we take this like for a vote. And there would be, and there were, how about Chairman Meow? Chair Meow, man. Chair Meow. Sorry, I got lost in the chat. But so it would be like there would be a trial one, and it could be potentially a 1-year position. I don't think we have to settle on a final once and for all form. I think we have the idea of extending a position for 1 year, but I think before we make a final decision, it's important that we review the working of the CA position, that the person who is occupying the chairperson position, that she or he talk about what it was, that we talk about our impressions. I think this is a meeting in itself, which would be very important to decide. The Lacanian speaks. I think it would be very important that we have, like, instead of like, oh, we're going to do this and then we're locked in forever. I think it's very important that we have a review process. That I think it could be a meeting only, it doesn't have to be many meetings, but it's important before we go on to the second phase. As for the selection, we have also the idea of a possible payment. From what I recall, we talked about up to $100 to $150 monthly. This was something that we discussed because we explicitly, each person said how much they would be able to contribute to this position. But, and this is, I think, one of the new things that was put in this process. This is something that may not necessarily happen. A person may not want to have group contributions. And so why would this be? This was something that was suggested initially by Vitor, right after the first meetings. And this is something that I think is very interesting. And I think there's a very large Platonist vibes, because if you go to the Republic, there's actually an attempt to say that there should be a reverse election process where the election is something that people want to not have. So they all, like, each person who's selected has the chance to say yes or no. So just before answering Dennis's issue, not issue, but I think question, I think just to describe how the process would be, we would have a negative lottery system. Everyone in the group would be involved, and this would even include lurkers and even people who are beyond lurkers. I mean, mere existence in the WhatsApp group, and they would be randomly chosen to participate. If the person denies, the lottery draws another name. If the person accepts, and this is very important, the person talks and says what they find necessary to occupy the position. Because we talked a lot about we talked a lot about like money as a means for doing this job. But if we are totally being honest, one of the most important things, I think, is going to be the help that they will need from someone, from people in the group already, from people who are in the things that are being done. And this is like something that applies to everyone. Even if the person who is most involved ends up being the CA, since the group is, in a sense, larger than them, then they will also have to, in a sense, deal with this. So we think that like there's the available payment. The payment can be like a cost month, a monthly cost help. It could be also like the person says, oh, I need a computer or whatever. And I know we will see, we can see the person can propose what they think is necessary. But the important thing is that we not only leave open for monetary aspects, but also for other types of needs, meeting and discussing with people, maybe forming a working group. Maybe the person does something that is like collective, like maybe they like talk to 2 or 3 people and say, look, could you help me out? Could we do this together? I mean, this could be done in many forms, but the idea is that if we are saying that anyone can occupy this position, it also means that anyone might have different needs. So that was what we were thinking. Now, just to address Dennis's initial question, because I think it's an important one. Why a negative lottery if we initially had 2 members in STP that voiced wanting to be CA? Well, for starters, I think the idea was, well, we could have a lottery between 2 people. I think that's not something that's out of the process. But I do think that when we think of this method, I think that first there's an element of chance. We might have someone who might feel wanting to be part, but they might only like address this if they are chosen. This might be an aspect that appears, like not necessarily. I mean, we talked about there were only 2 people, but they did not initially. We did not have initially other people, but with a negative lottery, if there are other people who might chance prize them with this opportunity, that they might be willing to do it. They might want to do it. And if it is in fact the case that only 2 people want to occupy the position, then it will have the same effect. So I think in effect, I mean, I think it's like at least the same as a lottery with 2 people, but I think at most it gives the opportunity for any other person to take a more active role in the group. And this is, I think, something that would be good for the general group, for the group in general. And also, I think as a side note, if we are spinning the wheel, I think it will be much more fun if we have like a multitude of names, and if like the inexistence of STP are chosen, and then we are faced with our silence. I think there's a ludic aspect. If we had a human resource department which is in charge of fun in the group, maybe this would be one of those moments. But I think maybe other people might have other justifications. But just to begin, I think at least it's the same as being the lottery between 2 people. And I also think that like it does like give an opportunity for like a system that is broader. Like we don't have to have final decisions on the selection process, of course, but if we end up doing if we do the first system, I think it's something that's more like the decision for this moment. If we try this out, we might have something that could be a future reference also. Yeah, I think I'm Dennis, please.
Okay. Yeah, one thing I noticed was the methodology for selection here is different from the one for the research coordinator. In the research coordinator, we are submitting something like each candidate must submit a proposal and then we vote on the proposal. So it is a more a smaller set of people that we choose from. In this one, it's anyone can be the CA, right? I wonder why this asymmetry exists. Could we also say that anyone could be the research coordinator and the same negative lottery could apply there? And if not, what's the difference? The other thing is, yeah, I guess going back to the original thing about the positive lottery, it just seems a bit. Well, okay, there may be someone in the group that doesn't know that they want to be the CA. And then when confronted with being chosen by the lottery, they will rise to the occasion of being the CA. But I understand having that benefit of kind of randomly interpolating someone in the group. But on the other side, there might be people in the group that are already doing the work or wanting to do the work a lot. And then those people are disadvantaged in this system. So yeah, I guess my question is like, we can try it either way. It's an experiment. But the side note there is, if the tenure is 3 to 6 months, then we won't be able to get around to everyone for a very long time, right? So if you've been really wanting to be the CA, you may have to wait years under this negative lottery. So that's just a thought there. But those are my 2 points.
Great. I think it was a great point. Just let me address the first one because it's easier. I think at least the idea in the research position is, I don't think there's a final. I at least I talked a bit with Kyle about this, but I have no, like, at least for me, final thoughts on how the research project, the research CA, whatever, should be defined, except that I think it would be interesting that people who want to be a CA, that they apply with like a small research program or something like that. I think if we do something similar in the central admin position, we risk facing something that I think it's something that we talked about and discussed in the first meeting, which is, we are going to, like, the person will have to do a presentation, a plan, and then they will be chosen from this plan. This is like one option, of course. There could also be the reverse, like, let's do the research position and do it also with a negative lottery. And then, like, we can see if the person has a plan, and then we could put the qualification after. That's also a possibility. But I think that at least touches but does not solve, I think, the differences between the two systems. But and in regard to the idea of what was the second point? Yeah, people might have to wait like years. Yes, I think that's something that's a possibility. Even if we have like 5 people interested in being CA, that's already 5 years. So I don't think it's something that doing just a positive lottery will solve on its own, unless unless we try something that is like, oh, you're going to be first, you're going to be second, but then if we draw, like if you had three interested people, and then we'd say one goes first, second goes second, and the third goes third, and then in the third year there might be other people in the group, and I mean there could be a whole myriad also of consequences for that. So I don't think doing just a positive lottery guarantees that wanting to be a CA, and even if it's a small pool, it does not guarantee, I think, that you will be able to occupy it. So I think there's that. But I do think, and this is something I think that we have to decide as a group, like the positive lottery, it would be something that like we would do then probably like we see who wants to join the pool, and then we draw from that pool. That's like an alternative proposal that I wouldn't be against it. I just think that maybe there are some I don't know. I think personally, I think the first one might be more interesting in the fact that it might, because just to address a final point before I extend too much, like you said something like, oh, there are people who might be already working and doing stuff. I think this is one of the issues that we discussed in the first meeting. This cannot be, I think, a sole criteria for deciding this, because there are many reasons for why people might not be able to contribute at the moment. So I think this is one of, I think the points that we discussed in the first meeting, why I don't think this is a sufficient reason to like, oh, because we could apply this because I think that's one of the directions we like had the discussion on. So I don't know if that's a
Can I suggest something?
yeah, I was
just,
gonna stop talking.
Just on I think that the thing that makes this just like personally, the reason why I like the negative lottery is that I think it has additional functions. For example, I think if we're making a lottery that includes everyone on the community, meaning which is a decision to be made, is the lottery over the English-speaking group, over the whole community, which includes the Portuguese-speaking group, which might have people who are not here. I mean, they can say, I don't speak English, I don't want to do it. I don't know. But what's the range? But the good thing is that it's a reason to talk to everyone who's currently minimally associated. And I would say we could even have a negative clause in the sense that if we don't even get a response, meaning the person actually silenced the group, we can just remove them. So that's also good use of it, like to keep the group, minimally checking who's online. Like it might be the case that the first person who answers says yes, and then we don't use that function, but that's a possible function. Then I think the second thing is also very important not to make it look like we're going for extreme randomness or extreme determination, because the thing that this proposal that I think it's very, very important is that it implies that there is selection process, a selection decision time that we need to decide. Like if fell on you, how much time do you have to think what you need? You should have some time, right? And then there is a transition period, because let's say you need time to talk to people, or you need some funding so you can free up some hours in your day to do this. How long do you need to actually get those things to function? So if we limit those things, for example, we say, look, you can only take a week to decide, and you cannot take more than a month of preparation to take on this function. That's already a limitation, because it will facilitate a bit for people to say yes if they have a minimal idea of how to get this done, even though it's still much more democratic than just democratic in this weird egalitarian exaggerated sense that we're trying to add, because it does leave something to chance. So we can also mix it in that way. Plus, I don't think we should be, for something that this experimental, I don't think we should even consider a year long. I think we should consider like 2 months, 3 months rotations, just because this also privileges a bit, people who have some handle on things. it still leaves open the space that somebody might get subjectivized by this and say, yes, I will do it. I'll take 1 week to plan, 2, 3, a month to prepare, but then I'm up for taking the role of 3-month coordinator. But it's, the very fact that it rotates kind of quick, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Somebody rising up to the event, that opportunity is open. It still narrows it down a bit. And I think that there is something important here, just to conclude, which is this proposal is not against campaigning. Because if you campaign, if you say, guys, let me be honest with you here, I really want to do this. Like, this is really what I want to do. I'll vote no for myself, so you can vote yes. So it still works. Like, if you want to post your project as general secretary of STP, you can post it on the group and say, guys, I really have an idea for this. And if you get people on board when it comes to that random vote, which is still a vote, if nobody else votes yes, because they're letting it roll by so that you can do it, it will be as an election. But it still keeps open a bit of random, because somebody else might falls on them and they say, yeah, man, it's just 3 months. I want to do it. I didn't think about it before, but I want to do it. So it totally integrates something that happened by chance, and we didn't rise up to the occasion previously when Eduardo joined the voting later. This would perfectly make that possibility and account for that position, like that situation, right? So it still allows for voting and selection. And I even think that perhaps that would allow us to make the same selection process for both central admin and research coordinator, because if you want to post your project, your proposal, well, that might raise the chance that people say no and let it go by because they see other people want to do it. But if you didn't present your proposal, and you still want to say yes, perhaps you can do it. And then there is a benefit, which is if you become the research coordinator and you have no idea of what's going on, we're probably going to spend a couple of months discussing what's going on, right? So it might be useful, I don't know. But I do get, I'm just saying this, but I do get why there might be an argument for keeping it separately. I'm just saying that I think we should describe the negative lottery as 3 steps, 4 steps, in fact, and then we can fine-tune them to make them more, to take more into consideration what Dennis said, for example, right? Selection process, selection time for decision, the time for deciding over the time for understanding, Dennis. The time for understanding, the instant of seeing, the time for understanding, and then the transition period, right? And then the limit of your reign or something like that. So depending on how we decide these 4 variables, I think we will already be, let's say, filtering the randomness, perhaps. And that seems to be a process that would that solve the issue Dennis just raised, that I also tend to agree with.
Yeah,
about,
I think just so I can take this note. What was the 4 step? The 4 steps of negative
the
lottery?
selection process. So, for example, are we doing a lottery over everyone on the STP community? Are we doing a lottery that you need to decide to enter first? Are we not doing a lottery? So the selection process itself, right? Do you need to send a proposal or not? That's the process, right? Then the second step is, how long does the person who gets selected by that process have to decide if they want to say yes or no, and to tell us what they need, right? So the moment to decide. Then the third thing is the transition period, because they might need us to raise the money. How is the easiest way to raise the money for that particular person? Who's going to meet them and send them the passwords or explain what's going on if they need to catch up or whatever, right? So how long does that period take? And there's a third thing. And then there is, how long do they actually function in that position? So that exactly 4 things, right? And I agree with Fatima also, just to conclude. I think that, we should treat all of this as experimental. The end of the first run, we should, finding it okay to change everything. Like we're just trying something. So I wouldn't commit anything for like 6 months, a year that is harder to, might get in the way of the person who took the position planning, because this is a crucial thing, right? Ultimately, the rotation time is the time the person will count on whatever resources we gave them, especially financial. So if you tell them they're going to have a year worth of some financial aid and then they don't, right? That's a big issue. So making sure the rotation is something that for now it's very realistic. I think it's also very important.
Yeah, I just wanna add something, which is first, I think the negative lottery for the research assistant position, I think it's also a good possibility. I think there is another issue, which is like the presenting of a plan, but like I said, I think nothing stops this plan from being something that is done like afterwards. But I do think, I just want to stress that I don't think this isn't so random, because a negative lottery, the effect will be at least in the minimum, the people who have explicitly stated their interest, they will say. But I think like if we take it like in real practical terms, it won't be very much surprising. It won't be very much surprising, I think, who is the one that's like because we will say, oh yeah, of course, this person has shown it. Like, I think there's like it's not an abstract randomness. I think like there will be, even if it's someone that has not stated, oh, I want to be, I think like we won't be so surprised. So I just don't want to say this, because I don't think it's like, because if it were totally random, it would be something like, let's have a negative lottery and the person, or let's just have a lottery with everyone and the person has to be a CA. And if the person does nothing, we are all screwed for 3 to 4 months, or we oust them and impeach them. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's like, just to be a bit Cartesian, I think there's a bit of good sense, in the sense that probably people who are willing to accept will be people who are already involved. And if not, if it's someone that's not involved, it will probably, I mean, to take this on, the person, either they will do this like for, oh, I can't take this, this is too much for this is too much for me, or they will like start participating in the group. So I just wanted to stress that I don't think it's totally random. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like, and I think there are people that are not like, just to say like, people who are very involved in the group, but for some reason might not find the excuse. Like, I mean, there are many reasons for people not to like, to be a random person, like, but that's just what I was, but I don't know if it answers what Dennis was saying, but if it clears at least what but please, Rafael.
Yeah, mine is actually pretty quick, because my main I really agree with what Dennis was saying, in the sense of like we should have like because my main question here, like I think that what was difficult for me to phrase is that Dennis's point was actually the most important thing for me, in the sense that like we have a uniform procedure for both of them, like both for CA and for RC. My only thing is that like whether the process, how we presented the process for RC and how we presented the process for CA should be the standard for each of them. I think that my only thing with the negative lottery is that like, and because I have the impression that like the negative lottery is something that like it avoids a particular thing which we were already like phrasing in our last meeting, which was to not become something like an election or something like that. And I think that like it's the main objective of that particular thing, which serves like a very particular circumstance and a very particular impasse of like of where we're at and like of the options available and everything. And while the RC is actually something that takes that same particular procedure that we were talking about, like to as one of the options for the CA and takes it as like a research position. And yeah, I have the impression like I'm fine with the negative lottery, like, but one of the things I would I'm just not sure if the randomness of like everything, like first because of the length of the process, I think that like we should really be like have a good picture of the I would say that like we could put it even because that service that Gabriel was talking about in terms of like I think it's a really good idea to have like a week to actually respond on that. Because I think it's also a way for us to actually clean up the group. And in terms of the research coordinator position in particular, I have there was one thing like I only like skimmed through it in a way, and is it like, would it be something like project based in the sense that like, for example, I can propose a certain particular, like to coordinate a particular strain of research, let's say, I don't know, something about like, yeah, I don't know, depth. Yeah. And then like Saldanha coordinates something else. And then each, like these things just get like, we just give a plan and then we have people like following a particular plan or something if they feel interested in something or not. Or would it be something like someone coordinates all these like project-based things and then like because this is like from I got the impression that it was the first case for the research coordinator, but then I'm not really sure. Yeah, I think these were my main questions. I'm a little bit confused about the negative lottery. Like in some senses I really like it, in some senses there's something that I don't like it but I know how to phrase yet. So yeah, I'm still trying to want to hear from everybody.
Well, in general, just if I could address what I'm sorry, Rafael too. Yeah, what Rafael mentioned there about the whether it's one or the other. I think that it could very well be the case of more towards the first. I believe you mentioned that. Okay, is it something that we were able to put on like an agenda, right? That's what was there in the proposal. So I think that's one of the attributions that would be interesting and more experimental. But at the same time, it would be interesting to have this position in light of what Rafa mentioned about being able to have that privileged perspective, an overview of what's going on, to be able to keep tabs on what's going on too in terms of research. So I don't know if I should wait a little and show this later, but it's pretty much part and parcel with the idea of establishing a position of integration as well. So being able to work with the newcomers, know who's more inclined to doing this or that. Maybe the objective would be more to foster, right, more let's say interesting encounters than an administrative position per se, I think. But one thing doesn't exclude the other, I believe. And even more so, I think the issue is independent of the voting system. I would still have that the proposal could be interesting, at least for the research position, independent of the lottery, independent of just a simple vote. Exactly, because you can outline and have the person who's like, let's see, at least thinking about occupying the position, you can have them be more propositive. And I think this is a game that everybody will have, even though like they end up not taking up the position. But like, okay, I was chosen by the negative lottery. I'd like to do this. What would you like to do? Maybe we can have a nicer overview of possibilities if we keep this the instance of a proposal. At least I would hold that. I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't know if Rafael Sedania, you had any responses before I jumped in?
I think that
Or I should just go.
no, I just could say I think like we should see, like as Kai said, I think there's a whole discussion to be done on the research position, and I think it's just one thing that I want to say. I think the research position is something that we have not discussed. I mean, we have discussed the central admin position. So I think it's very like, I mean, it's very normal that there are lots of open questions. And I think like Caio has done a great job in like presenting the problem. But I think like we talked about it. I think he's very open because I mean, this is something experimental. So I don't think that we should treat, and this is just like to get also back to a point by Dennis. I don't think that just because we are presenting the two positions at the same time, that they should be treated either symmetrically or not symmetrically, because we don't know what the research position will be. So just like, they might be symmetrical or not, they might have the same method, there might be a reason for this or not, but I think like we should like keep decisions, we don't have to determine a coherence since we don't even know what the research assistant research position will be. I mean, if we have if it ends up being a secretary chairperson, we could have like the research assistant to the group. I don't know why it said it, maybe but just
yeah, but as a general principle, can we agree to discuss the coherence of the two proposals after we discuss the two proposals? Otherwise,
yeah, I don't think we should deal with it at this moment.
so we also get time to go to Caio.
Yeah, I see. So we go back to the
John,
CA. I agree. Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
John
my
was...
main like I'm sorry, I feel like I'm cutting John off it, but I just wanted to say this very quickly. My main thing with the CA position, like I think that in terms of the job description, it's much clearer in that sense. Like I think it's much more fleshed out in that way. I think the only thing for me that like I feel it's important is that like everybody not really like agrees, because I don't think we're gonna come for an agreement, but like that we have a clear picture of like what does the negative lottery do for us in that sense. Why is it better than like the procedure that was suggested for as an example for the RC, which is actually like application based and everything, and whether like, because I do think that the sensibility that is being addressed is sort of like an avoidance for putting like people on the spot in terms of like presenting something if they want to be like doing the central admin position. But I do think that like it actually adds to something we were saying in the like the possibility of like flashing out a proposal or something like this. It actually adds to something that we were saying that we wanted from the admin position in the past meeting that we were doing, which was actually that this person could like set up the pace, set up a particular pace for activities, and also like set up a certain vision. And like I think that type of autonomy would be something that works, and like that would be, I think, more fomented if we go not with the negative lottery actually, but with a process that is far more similar to what is being suggested to the RC. Because the impression that I have is that it becomes like a lot of what is the vision of it per se, like a lot of the vision building and everything goes into the RC position, then a lot of the these other aspects actually get I don't know, I feel that this gets a little stranded through the method that we are using.
Let me just like understand just one last point. I'm not going to, just so I can understand your idea. You think that one thing that is important is that like this is not autonomous position, but this is a position that comes with a vision. And I agree. I think there's a position that I agree with this point wholeheartedly. My question is, just so I can understand where you're coming from, do you think that because I don't think one thing negates the other. The negative lottery system is a system for just picking someone else. we could have after a lottery or before a lottery or whatever, someone proposing. I mean, this could be one of the steps, like, this is what I want to do, what I think is important, what I want the group to do. This, I don't think one thing excludes the other. So I was wondering if you just think that it's important for people to have a proposal, or if the proposal has to be a key element in the selection process. I think that's just because I think these
Yeah.
are different things.
Yeah, I know. For me, I think that like if there's gonna be a proposal, I think actually like if there's not a type of selection, I would rather just like play it out and like not see the proposal, because you're like, you see something flashed out and you're like, oh man, okay. And then like of course you can always like feedback things, like engage with them and everything, but like at some point, like what choice do you have? Like you're fleshing out something, and then like of course you go and you feedback, but like you have the room of maneuver is like smaller, you know. And I do think that like I do think that this that there's gonna be like these types of like differences are actually gonna be something like productive in a way. I have the impression that like it makes us, the process of reviewing something is really like formative in that sense, aside from all of the aside from what is annoying about it.
No, yeah, I think like the idea, and just to add something that I think, because this is like my question, because I think we can have proposals, but this is just the point that I didn't understand. Do you think like that after the proposals, we vote on the proposals?
But like if the person, like if we have like the yeah, I mean ideal, which it's similar to what is happening with the, it could be something like inversed, I don't know, like something like we just do like we get our proposals. It's because like we won't have ideally like the same amount of proposals, but like in the future I see something like, okay, people place like a very simple proposal, then you can do a negative lottery on like those proposals, and then you just vote like yes or no or shit like that. Like I just have the feeling, I mean, if it's only like a me problem, like I'll get over it, it's fine. But like it's just something that I really think it's formative to be like flashed out, you know.
No, I just wanted to clear, because for example, and I think Gabriel put something that is good. Like this happens all the time in sports, at least in the NFL. Like people interview a lot of coaches because they want to pick their brains of very smart people. So like it's not a loss if different people propose stuff, because like it's great. We have like a lot of ideas. So whoever gets chosen, he will also have like the opportunity to get things from the other people. So I think like even if this is like an actually good idea, like people could have the opportunity to propose stuff like, this is the vision I have for the group. I think that what we have to decide is like, okay, so, and I think this is like we will do as a collective, like once we have the proposals, will this be like a merit decision? Like we will say, oh, I think this proposal is the best, or will this be a lottery, and like we have the proposals, they are a guiding principle for the negative lottery? Because I mean, if I don't have proposal, maybe I'll just say I'll sit this one out. So, and which is also a form of deciding. And I think I'm just taking this issue back, because I think this is one of the things that like we were trying to avoid, and I think with good reason we ended up not, because if we do merits-based voting, I think things will get subjective, maybe on not a good level, in the sense that I think it will not be additive. It will create like, it might create like, not division, but it might create like differences that people will like, because it's a decision on that sense, it might not be additive. But if we have like a negative proposal, like it's very like possible that one person, like, I was selected to be the admin, but I thought your proposal was so good that maybe we can work out together. Maybe we can even share I mean, I think it's more, at least that's my position, I think.
Yeah,
But
I think
I
there should
think
be
that's a
like,
good decision.
there's something to what you're saying, which I think leads us, and it's a sort of like a very interesting evil turn of what we were doing with the negative lottery, which I think could be interesting, which would be like, okay, if you get on the negative lottery, okay, you can refuse the central admin position, but you might have to like produce something very small akin to like something that could be archived for whoever gets it. So like you sort of pick the brain of the group through the process of like randomizing, and like, okay, you don't want it, at least tell us something about it. Because like if you don't, it could be for a number of different reasons that you don't want. You don't want because you don't have time, you don't want because you don't have money, but if you're, or like because you are doing something else, or like that annoys you or whatever. But like I think there's something for you to say about that position that the person who actually wants it could benefit from having. So then I think that like there would be a certain like I would personally be cheering for like actually people that I know who are interested be the last ones to be like negatively selected in a way, because then we would get like, it would frame itself as a chance for everybody to at least like say something, or like say a bit like, okay, I'm gonna refuse that, but like this is how I'm gonna like, I don't want to do it for a number of reasons, but then I have this ideas about like central admin or something like that.
I completely agree with you. I think like when people refuse, there will be a lot of information, because if it's someone that simply doesn't participate in the group,
Yeah,
they have muted the group, that says something. If it's someone who's not so involved in the group, they will say, look, I just don't want it. And we know something about that participation. Like if it's one of the people who are in these meetings, I mean, I would probably say, I would start saying, look, I am currently overworked, and then I would be all guilt tripping. And then I would say something, but I think this, and that. And I think many of us would also do that. Look, I don't want this, but if I were to do this, I think there's a lot of work, because this is what and so I think it's a great idea. I think, and I maybe it's my optimism, but I do think this would like spontaneously come out also in the, because we are, I mean, in the sense that like we would end up not, I don't know if we have to mandate saying like people have to justify, but I do think they would, but that might be, maybe it's my mode D inside of me. Sorry, John.
I would mode D, whatever that is, also because it's a topic of contention.
Yeah, I just did there's the Nazi thing, like reduction ad Hitler, reduction ad mode D.
No, but I do think it's a good thing. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think you raised some great points. John, sorry for keeping you at bay.
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
Did he go like?
John, you're there? Ah, he stepped away.
Okay, so I don't know if we.
Yeah, I had my hand up. Can I just to reiterate, like I think that all the concerns Moscard is bringing up should be addressed. Though I have the impression that, as I said here in the message, we can perfectly take them into consideration. For example, by adding a 0 step where we have like a week open for people to propose things. And I also think like, let's not, I mean, personal relations, you know, somebody who wants to do it, that's going to come into it. Like we cannot put that on paper, you know. You want to see somebody have the opportunity, so you might say no. So to have a period where people are adding proposals, I think it's a good opportunity for all the reasons Rafa and Moscardi mentioned, but not making it into the selection itself. I have the impression that it's very different to have your proposal rejected in the benefit of some other proposal, versus to see the proposals and then one of them is, it just happens. So the lottery that it falls on you first to say if you want to do it, and then you say yes. Like, I think that I'm not sure what is the exact benefit. Like if the information of we all prefer this proposal over that, if that's the best info we can get from the process, compared, for example, with the things that you guys were just raising, like when people skip, we learn something. When somebody who hasn't presented themselves doesn't answer, we learn something. If they do answer and say no, we learn something. If they do answer and say yes, we learn something. So I just feel like we can take more of the whole thing while also considering what Moscati was saying. But I think John's back.
Yeah. So I think I like the idea of separating the proposal from the CA. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I've worked in situations where that's been a good outcome before. I think though, kind of following up on Gabriel's question, doesn't make sense to, like, if we're going to separate them, I think they need to be hard separated. Like, we vote on a program, and then we can, however we end up randomly lottery selecting that person, we're making a case, or we're giving an opportunity to see how a random person fits with a program that we decided. And I don't think that necessarily takes away. I think in many ways it follows with our theory that kind of by providing end up kind of getting more freedom to do things. So what you're proposing, what a person ends up coming forward with then as a CA is less a whole program, more an implementation strategy. I think that also then begins to like concretize asks, like what people would ask for. If we have a general idea and we've already discussed a policy and voted on it and gotten buy-in, which I think is one of the I'm not convinced of with the negative lottery of the buy-in role. I think that having a collective process for determining the policy would be good. I also think this leads back to the question and comments that Fatima made in chat, because I think it does make sense, even if we end up like it makes sense. Obviously, we're going to be revising things, and we always can change them. But if we're going to be trying to make experimentation, then it also makes sense to somehow constrain our options, right? To commit to something that can be potentially a mistake down the road just to see if it works, because it may not work at first and it would be easy to like reject, but then how do you like assess whether or not you've experimented enough to say this doesn't work, right? Like we have to have some kind of like range of trials, right? And so I think that also we begin to get a bit more precise with, on the one hand, we have this kind of like random sampling mechanism in the form of the lottery, but we also have kind of concrete hypotheses we form as a group, which is like this organizational strategy will take us further along. Once we form that hypothesis, then kind of following the experiment analogy, then how you actually construct an experiment to carry out that hypothesis, yeah, that would be like the role of the CA would be to do that. And without jumping too far into the research thing, I think precisely because that one should be the complete negative lottery, not the CA. I think they should be switched, but I won't go too far into that since we're talking about that separately. But I think if we do have a negative lottery for CA, we should not have it for the program. And I think we need to, think in terms more of implementation for the CA's kind of contribution than the overall strategic goal. So, yeah.
John, there's one thing I didn't understand. Like, so what, I mean, could you like, what do you think your position on the selection process, like negative lottery, yay or nay? Just so I understand, like, because I think you're putting one's theory where your mouth is, which is very important. But just so I can see this, because I'm trying also to map out where we're standing.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with the negative lottery if we abstract out the program. If we don't, I would like to see how we have the research position policy applied to the central admin, where we have proposals, we elect that person based on the proposals. But I am good to separate it. I think that there's a lot of virtue in that, and it kind of depersonalizes it.
Did he?
He froze for me as well.
He's frozen, like he's laying down speeds.
If I understand what she's brought up correct in the past, but I think that Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, I won't go into it, but I think that there's a lot of natural reasons why the research position can, and we don't need to go through the proposal process.
Can you repeat again, John? You cut off.
Oh.
Why the research proposal cannot what?
No, I think the research proposal can go without the policy program, but I don't want to I'll wait till Kaio's presentation to actually go into the details. I just think,
but
in terms of the CA, I'm against a complete negative as it stands right now. Without
okay. So against complete negative in the sense that we simply have a negative, but you think like if we have like a time for proposals and then a negative, that's okay or not?
I think so. You cut off this time, but I'm pretty sure from the snippets I got that yes.
Yeah, because it was cut off when you were talking, there was a moment you were like, it seemed like a very crucial moment.
I know it keeps happening at the like peak times. So
yeah, I'm still confused. So is the idea that there is a week for people to put up proposals, followed by the selection process ranging over everyone, but now we have all this added information from the proposals, a time for people to say if they accept the selection or not, a period of transition, and then the time that they are in the rotation as CA. Is that a proposal somebody's not happy with right now? Like, is that the proposal you were denying, or is that already a compromise that fits what you're saying?
I think that all kind of fits. I think. I mean, I don't think anything is going to go like disastrously wrong. I like the being a little more intentional with the programs, but I highly doubt like if we go completely negative lottery, it's going to collapse or anything. So like, I'm not adamantly against anything. I think that there would be more of a good collective process if we were to decide the programs ahead of time, like the actual strategies separate from the CA.
So the strategy is not the CA's responsibility.
No. I think like that's what needs to be separated.
Okay, because this is a
Okay.
different thing, I think. Like
sorry. So we choose the strategy, then we do the lottery and see if the criteria for the lottery would be more, be like if the person agrees to do that, like that's a part of the process. I see that. I think that works better.
And that's why I'm trying to say like the difference between the hypothesis, which like Fatima said, it's a collective strategy, a collective hypothesis, and then implementation. Especially with what we're doing, there's all kinds of ways to implement. So that makes sense to me to be a hard negative lottery at that point. But
can I be
end up losing something if we don't have this collective strategy determining process.
But can I just ask two things? First is, why do you think that has never happened?
Why do I think that has never happened?
Yeah, why haven't we done that? Like discuss strategy thus far.
We have multiple times.
Yeah, so that will keep happening.
Yeah,
Isn't that something that whoever takes on this position will simply have to pay attention to?
The decision is in like the locking things down for a time to test them, right? Like, yes, we keep stopping to reflect, but have we said we're going to try this for a certain amount of time and commit to it?
This is what we're doing, I think, right now.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to understand is like, if I just want to make sure we're not coming up with like a plan before the plan that will be even harder to apply, which is, so now we need to have an organizational meeting that defines explicitly a collective strategy people agree on as it's written. And then whoever comes later needs to follow that. But we do have something like an informal thing going on. We could say that whoever takes this position, one of the things they can be good at is, let's say, calling a meeting and saying, guys, I don't want to do this work without a concrete strategy. I have the impression that what's going to happen is that nothing will happen because we never done that for a reason, I think. I don't think we're lacking that. Like, I think that there's a reason why we don't simply have one meeting and one document everyone agrees on a plan. So I don't know. Like, I think that I would just be careful not to add a step that itself has many steps inside. And we find out that, oh my God, I wish we had a central admin to help us set up a meeting where we're deciding a collective strategy. Like, like I just wonder, like, everyone is, I mean, this is a natural thing. Like, I'm afraid of the
Could be like
connection.
goal, right? That itself could be the goal, right? If we're voting a CA to be like set up that process there. we've done it.
Perhaps.
If we all agree
Yeah.
on that, we've done it. There it is.
Yeah, because my point is, the risk everyone is collectively taking with this proposal is to get these two words together, which are always complicated, which is equality and power. You're going to give power to somebody you don't know who they are. You just want to make sure we're not adding too many details to make sure we're not giving them too much power. Because that's the joke. That's the fun part of this, right? The fun part is putting power in the hand of we don't know who. I'm worried that we're afraid that this whoever person, the stranger, will do things we don't want them to do. But if they do that, they're a terrible central admin. Like they're not using their power. They're relinquishing the power to actually see what the group is, get a meeting. Like that makes a lot of sense to me from the transition period. Depending on who it is, they might very much say, guys, I cannot do this without a collective meeting on strategy because I don't have a feeling for where this is going. And then it will be an amazing opportunity. Other people might do it differently. And like that we have a strategic vision is proven by the fact we're having the craziest meeting of all time. We're considering having a lottery. Like, if we didn't have minimal conversions, this meeting wouldn't be happening. So it's already, we have that nailed down somewhere in the realm of ideas and justice, So we are in that way, that path. I just want to make sure we don't create too many preliminary steps to make sure power doesn't go in the hand of the wrong people. Because we already have enough filters for that. Our meetings are boring. We're a bunch of weird people. That's a big filter for people to get away from the group.
I'm not terribly worried about that yet, like the levers of power, whatever, but no one's trying to get that. My point right now is
for now, I agree for now.
It's more, I guess, just a sense of potentially losing an opportunity to kind of take our practice a little bit more rigorously by like locking this in. But if it seems like too many steps are redundant or whatever, like that's fine. I just realizing this and coming up with these processes, I'm always, like there will be an organic of doing this again, but I also, like in the process of formalizing, I feel like we should think about how this process also gets formalized. But I don't really have a lot more to add on that.
Yeah, there's still something unclear to me. So for the research position, there's a proposal required from the person who wants to be a candidate. And this is not the same thing for the central admin, right?
We're going to discuss if we do the same or difference.
Okay, so
but it's different.
What I was trying to
right now it's different. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm trying to suggest this time and in meetings before is why don't we, like, okay, Gabriel, you said that there's an unwritten strategy out there that is being worked out, if I understood well. So what's wrong with writing it, and why would we consider this to be like adding steps or like an obstacle in this process? I think to have something collectively shaped and written is one step, as John said, in formalizing the work. And also, when a person would come and take the position, they can add like suggestions, additions, and so on. And it will not be dependent on them to like form this vision. So I think this was one of the issues that were raised before, that we actually need to do this in separation of the two positions, just like to have something concrete. And so like if something really bad happens and like a person steps out suddenly, like the work can still go on without having a major, I don't know. Yeah.
Just to complete, since I was mentioned, like the reason why I say this is why not do it is because I can tell you guys by experience until now in the group that it has been very hard to get this done. I think that whoever wants to do it will have a hard time. It hasn't been easy to schedule strategic meetings. We have a lot of debates on this. I think it's just a matter of the amount of effort we want to put into it. Sure, but I would be happy if somebody said like, hey guys, I think that in my 3 months as a admin, this is one of my priorities, that we come out of these 3 months with a fleshed out written thing and we can try. I just don't understand why add this before and not add this as a possibility, given that, you know, the idea that this group needs to have an explicit, clear objective. We've had that discussion many times, and I think that there are real reasons. One of them has to do with the lack of a central admin, why we didn't get this out of the realm of ideas, like why this hasn't happened yet. That's why I asked John, like, why do you think that this hasn't happened? I know it's a demand. Everyone who sees this crazy group says, what do you guys want? But
I think it should be added like an additional task for the person who's going to take the position to do it. Like in the next 3 to 6 months, they can call for meetings, saying, hey guys, we need to do this. They will take care of organizing this. They will take care of how to who's going to write it, who's going to help in it, and so on.
yeah, I think that would be perfect. Like they can do it. I'm just saying that my impression is just out of how we got this far. I think it's actually a lot of steps to having a collective strategy down. If you guys think that that's essential before moving with these things, I'm fine with that. I just think that to be realistic about what that means is not just like, let's have one meeting and write it up. I think there are reasons why this hasn't happened, and not necessarily bad reasons. Can
I say something? Because I think this is like a really, we went 180. We wanted to have like a position that was flexible, that if things went wrong, we could change it, that we would have like, nothing would be definite. And now we're talking about setting strategic goals that are written. And I think it's like, come on, man, maybe we're just afraid of letting someone do something that it's not. I mean, I think that, I joked about the Paulo Freire, but it's because I'm totally in it right now. And I think we just have to let things work it out, because I do think that I agree with you, Fatima. I think we have this is a very important discussion. I think we started doing this when we had that vision and mission statement meeting. I think that was very good, where we each talked like, how do we see STP in 5 to 10 years? I mean, it was something, I think, a step in that direction. And I do think that a CA might think that that's an important goal. But, and this is like, I think this is really important. We don't need a CA for this. I'm going against like what people are saying, because I think like, of course, the CA might allow us to organize ourselves in this sense, but I think nothing right now is stopping us from having meetings which try to elaborate. Nothing is stopping anyone in this group from doing this. I do think like right now, it's quite clear that a lot of members in the group, and I think this is important, like are voicing this out. And I tend to agree that I think like this is an issue that's important. I don't think we have a quite clear view for ourselves what this means, but I don't think we should like put this as a prerequisite. I know a lot of people are saying that they're not saying this is a prerequisite, but if we are like, we are actually doing this, in fact. So you may be saying that this is not a prerequisite, but we are talking about it now as something that it's like an impediment. And I think like maybe the first CA will never touch on this, and this is not a problem, because I do think that the CA position, it might do that, but we don't want to handcuff it also like this, like you are going to be responsible for setting the organizing wheels that let us allow for us to, like, you know, this is like the Drummond poem. We are like walking down the streets, and then we are selecting a CA, and then suddenly the machine of the world appears before us. And I mean, I think it all sounds very good on paper, but I do think that we are getting a bit sidetracked in the fact that we are trying to organize processes, and setting a strategic vision is something that might take a lot of time, especially if you are going to write it down, especially if it's something that's going to have to, like, in a sense, guide the CA. So I wonder, like, if this is like, I do think there's a bit of a Zeno's paradox here. We're diving down into things that I think they are important, but I wonder if we, like, I mean, we clearly, and I say this like with a lot of love, because I think I recognize myself this, we clearly have a lot of issues, because when we get the chance to talk about our own issues as a group, we like start like our strategic vision. This is not, I mean, this is not the topic of the meeting. There was a hole and then it appeared. And I do think it's great. I mean, I love my Mondays. And I really do love our non-theoretical meetings. I think they really increase. But I don't think having the setting of a strategic vision as a priority for the CA is handcuffing. I think it is handcuffing. I mean, I'm going to say this like, this is my point of view, because we are determining what the person has to do. Like, what if the person thinks that the most important thing is organizing the distribution of tasks? That could be a possibility, and that would be very helpful for us. So, I mean, I understand. I mean, maybe this is what we would do. And maybe the person seeing this all can see, oh, maybe we should do this. But maybe they can just say, fuck it. I just want people to read the emails. And it might be useful. I mean, I'm being a bit like being very direct, but I do think like yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we are overstepping some things that take time. But that's just I mean, Vito wants to.
No, it's just that I think we're getting like, I don't know how to speak in English. It's like the horse before the carriage. I don't know. But I think that's like the reason for setting up the CA position is that currently STP is organized in an informal manner. So people the carriage before the so like there are many tasks that are important to organize the collective, and that sets up some political problems in the collective, and to collectivize the manner in which the collective is organized, and to like formalize and decide what can be the manner in which things are done, and what kind of issue is more important or less important, what kind of, it's like we don't know how it is for STP to be organized in a manner that is not the current manner. So it is impossible to decide what we might do, what will be, because when we change the manner, I don't know if but like according to STP, like the organizational point of view, if we change the manner which we compose and interact in the collective, we're going to see other things that were not possible to be seen before we did the change. So like I think like setting, I think the task of doing that and thinking that as something deliberate is an hypothesis, a program, a strategy, and like maybe we can like set up some proposals or thoughts that we think are important for people who are assuming this task, but that I think no, we might do that, like think a strategy that the person will have to follow, but that will be just a document, like the political practice that will be produced in this process is like, will change pretty much everything. So what we think now is strategic and whatever will not be, if the change happens, will not be necessarily what will be important after the change, because now we are you get the point. So it's like I think that's why I think the yeah I don't necessarily agree with the research proposal like being like a candidacy. Could be a lottery too.
I think
Not sure if that would
I
be
think
bad.
like the research position, we can pretend it doesn't exist until Kyle presents it.
Yeah, but
mean-
I think the most important part of the document, like the reason for the selective process would be the tasks, like who is willing to do the tasks, and like what would doing the tasks in that manner change for the collective and for that person that will do it. So will that cost something? Will the collective help? I think that's already something of an organizational strategy. It's not a political strategy like we want to have 2 international bases and one nucleus in each state of Brazil and something like that. It's I think it's something that has more to do with what we think. Like, and as I said, we could discuss what will be important, but that doesn't really matter before the thing happens, I think.
I guess, I mean, just to answer John very quickly, I don't think we discussed, it's not like, it's unclear why the research proposal is a good idea. We don't know if it's a good idea. I think this is very important to remark because we haven't discussed it. And I don't think, I mean, I think it's like we are increasing problems because, I mean, this is like, I don't think it was a good idea, now that I think about it, to schedule both things at the same time. Because I think this is becoming like, we are creating an obstacle and it's not the same thing. We can find the research position terrible, or we can find the Venda Casada. Yeah, it's not a Venda Casada. I mean, I did one thing, I wrote one thing, and Kyle wrote the other. He did show me his, and I commented a bit, but like when we were discussing, it was like, wow, this is like, we don't know what people are gonna think. So this is not something that's it's not a merit sale. I love bad translations, but I'm insisting in this because and it's a very, I mean, I think Vitor, he Trinitarianized the whole discussion, so it's like game over when someone Trinitarianizes where we are. But yes, so that's why I think like we should not bring something that has been under discussed with something has been over discussed. It's like two different I mean, we're talking about two different things. Of course, we can say, look, there's a good idea in there, maybe we could take it here, but I don't think there's a coherence. And I mean, there could be a world where the C8 position is solved and we don't even need a research position because the composition will change. So, I mean, I think we should, I mean, we are getting, there's a lot of the cart, but what's the whole expression, John? The cart, is it the cart, the horses before the cart before the horses, the cart before the horse. It's great to see that this is an international expression.
Yeah. We all come together on that.
Yeah.
I am wondering just real quick for method or whatever, do we need to vote on something before going to Kaio's talk?
I think we need to just ask, and like if someone disagrees, I think it's better for them to just like say something is. Do people here, without considering the, yeah, what is currently bothering us? Yes, is there any other proposal on the table? I think this is the main point. And just to do a little bit of history, what did we do? We said we need a CA position. We tried discussing the CA position, but yes, I agree. I think it might be happening. I just don't think, I don't agree with the order. Okay, but just let's while people are like, we already have 2 people on the line, just let me refresh what we've done in this process thus far. We started talking about the need for a CA position. We agreed for compensatory pay for the CA position. Then we had discussions on who wanted to, we didn't have discussions. We asked who wanted to be the CA. 2 people presented themselves. We had a meeting because we did not discuss this very basic fact, which is how do we decide between 2 people? Nobody, and this is like, this is on everybody, not anybody in particular. This is on everybody. Nobody discussed this. We had a big meeting. We discussed a lot of ways that we don't want to decide things. This is very important. We had a lot of negative decisions, like, let's not go this route, let's not go this route. And then we had, for like a month or 2, we rehearsed doing a meeting to talk about this. We did not do a meeting. I'm going to mention this because why don't we have meetings for our strategic vision? We couldn't do a meeting like outside of the Monday meeting to discuss this something thing that's very important. We couldn't do it. Then we did the we shared the text. We did the text, people. I mean, I volunteered for one, Caio volunteered for the other, the discussion. I don't know how many comments there were for Caio's. I know that I talked with him about his, but nobody talked with me about mine. And I said, please do your comments. Sorry, Dennis put some comments on a very important point that wasn't clear, and I think it's important to mention. So thank you, Dennis. But so I mean, we are not very good at doing certain things. This is just what I wanted to say. We're not good at this. We're not good at organizing ourselves. So, I mean, I think a strategic vision is important, but I just wanted to do this recap before final words. Read it in take it in a Socratic manner, Gabriel. Renzo, please. 15 minutes, just like Vitor said.
15 minutes, what?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, I meant like Renzo and Rafael can speak, then we take 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay, like a 15-minute break.
Yeah, I won't speak for
Okay.
15 minutes.
No, okay. I agree.
Yeah, I might be risking repeating like what was said before, but I think I feel like we're trying to beta test new features, and we should just like ship it and see if it breaks, because like we're beta testing with ourselves, like some features we don't even know, like it's some necessities we're not even sure like we have, right? Like I mean, the central admin seems way more concrete only by the fact that we have been discussing for a long time. I mean, it's not that we know it is. It might happen that once we implement it after like 3 months, I wouldn't rule out the possibility that after testing for 5 months, we just say like, let's go back where we were, but at least we learned something with that. I think it's easier, like the cost, given that we invested so much time with this, the cost is much lower to just like try it out. And I would be more, I think the most important is sort of like fixing, like having a clear idea of like that we will have a review process later, whatever like happens when we try to implement this. And then we're being able to like review it, we can just like change our minds. But I think the fact that we already invested so much time and thought on it, and it is a concrete sort of like spelled out thing, I think we shouldn't be like worried of like what will happen. Like we just might get surprised. So yeah, I think it's more like it's the opposite. I think that's where the distinction between like the programmatist approach and the experimental one is differs, right? Because we're trying to sort of like try out a new organ and see what it does and then recollect, instead of like laying out, having a clear idea of what we want, like in a program, and then sort of like implementing it. So yeah, I was just wanted to say that. And I think even for the research position, like it sounds a bit more abstract, but as long as we have like a clear case on like how to delegate this function and how to afterwards like review it, as soon as I mean, these two functions are like relatively low cost ones, which sort of like ship them to make them like do their stuff, and then we can just like come back and review it. So I'm all for like trying new stuff, and I think it's a bit different from the strategic part, because it's like it's not like doing strategic thinking is not like adding a new part inside the collective to do stuff. It's just like saying that we should do more, but we're already like doing it. So implementing a new function is actually like delegating new stuff to a new part of the collective. So I think there's a distinction there, but yeah, otherwise I think it's I think there is an asymmetry between the CA and the research position in like the amounts of thought and energy and time that we dedicated to them. But overall, I think we should also think about how like testing new features might not solve like problems, but at least might sort of like spell out like fantasies of like what we are able to do or have to do and so on. But yeah, otherwise I'm on board on like the proposals and stuff.
Also one.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about like the voting thing, because in my opinion, one of the main things that like we have to learn from the past meeting and from this meeting is that like we should really vote some things out, in the sense that like, because what happened, as at least the way I see it, like the fact that we put both of these positions like to be discussed together in the same meeting, and like people were sort of in the headspace, what happened is that like it's the same thing as like, well, I don't know, you eat a cake and then you have an apple, and then the apple tastes like shit because it's not like it's not gonna be as sweet as the cake anyway. So like it just gives that mismatch perception of what's happening. And then like we came back to the same pros and cons of that question we had in the past meeting, which was like, okay, do we want a process before, like a process of application and like showing a proposal or something, or not, like before the voting actually went through? Because then like it's this, like we sort of like in a lot of ways, like, and me included, like we're trying to build this into like negative proposal thing, and so on and so forth. So like it became that's why I think like both of the things were paired together, because not really like, because the RC position actually had the process that like was before something that like we wanted to avoid, and they are like, which was having a sort of like an application process, but then the reasons to avoid it started like in hindsight seeming like smaller, because we didn't actually like put the nail down and said, okay, like we're not gonna have an election type vote, and then if we're not gonna have and I think that this is a good it could have been a good thing in the sense that like we stop pursuing that option in a way, right? Like we can actually try to build that in, but then like the option doesn't come back because we have decided like. And what Dennis was saying like about the disagree and commit thing on Wikipedia is, the thing is like we disagreed, but we didn't commit to not actually having that. So like we're just running into the same disagreement and trying to like accommodate it, which is a good thing. But it would be good to know that like if that possibility is off the table, it changes the way that like whatever is gonna be voted is gonna be voted. And yeah, so
Just to be clear, we have 2 clear votes already in the pipeline. In 15 minutes, we're gonna just ask ourselves, is whatever, I think Rafa should just revise what is the current state of the proposal, and then everyone should just say, I'm okay with putting this to a vote or not. And then there's gonna be a vote on the WhatsApp group. So we can both just say now, no, I'm not sure. I rather consider this thing, and then we don't take it to the WhatsApp group, that's fine. Or though I really don't think we're running in circles, man. Like this proposal is not anything close to anything before. It considers the idea of a proposal, it considers a negative lottery, it's considering the like it.
no,
It is a
yeah,
proposal.
no, I didn't mean to like disvalue the work on the proposal at all. Like
No. I agree.
it's not my intention. I'm sorry if it came across like that. I'm just saying that like
No,
we came back to the point of like talking about an application, which we did, which it has been like the topic of what we were talking about.
I'm gonna say like we have two votes to make anyway. So there, even if everyone says yes, I'll go along with it. You can say no when it's on the WhatsApp group anyway. So I think that we should just we agree to take 15. Just make sure that that question makes sense when we come back. Like Rafael should probably summarize. Okay, the proposal right now looks like this, and then we vote if it's okay to go to the WhatsApp. And also probably we should vote on what we want from the WhatsApp vote. Like if it's 51% versus 50, is that a okay run, or do we want more than that? So I think those are the things, the minimal things we need to do. And a no, it's perfectly fine if we don't agree on it and we want to discuss it further, right? But just so we can give it kind of a round closure before going to the research proposal, which I think it's kind of a separate thing.
Yeah, I just want to add something. I think like I can work out a final version as the Senate written. I don't know the position. I'm relator. I'm the relator. But I think there are 3 things. I will do this final version so we can vote. This vote, as Gabriel said, this might be a vote not for, this is an experiment. What would happen if people who are not in this meeting see this? So it might also be something like, as Gabriel said, if you disagree, you could also vote yes now, just to see how it goes around. But third, I think that if there's a disagreement, and if we don't vote a proposal, we need a plan for a new proposal. Like someone, I think, needs to step up. Because I think like, and I don't think it should be me, because like I did a proposal, not saying like, because I think like we have to have like some mechanisms also, like if one proposal is not worked out, we need someone that we need to decide in this meeting, okay, so who is going to do this? And then we do another round. And I think it's important just because, thanks, Dennis. Just because I don't think it would be good if we ended this meeting like if it's all negatives, like let's like wait for 2 or 3 months for this to come back, because I think we need to have to like we're learning how to organize ourselves. I mean, we need to find the what's the thing in the goal? We need to find our gluts. We need to find our gluts, the gluts in our factory line. People need to read the goal. So 15-minute break, right? We come back at 8:07. Okay. See you all in 15.
The room's gonna be running, right? Yeah, that answer.
It's gonna
Hey guys, are everyone back?
Just finishing writing here.
I'd like to propose to the Senate also an amendment that might also help with some stuff, which is what if in the week before, let's say we have the selection process there as the week for putting up proposals if you want, like you want to campaign for yourself. There's a week worth of campaigning. What if in the meeting before that starts, we do like a strategy meeting so that we, even if we don't put it into writing a final thing, we make sure every week before the whole process starts, there will be a week where we'll be discussing like, how's everyone seeing the next 6 months, which is, you know, even a bit more than the rotation would include. So even if we don't put it into paper, or let's say we do, fine. But if we can't, at least there is like a strategy meeting. People can campaign for themselves if they want, or put up proposals that others might use after that for a week. Selection process, blah, 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 you know, like that could be an amendment that accounts a bit for what John and Fatima mentioned. I would clearly be in PMDB if I was just conciliating stuff. Actually, that's not how PMDB works, sorry. They would have to involve monetary conciliation too.
Just to be clear here, do you all think there's still gonna be time to like do perhaps an overview of the other position? Should we leave it for later? Should we just go through it and maybe let it simmer for a while? Like, I don't know, what's the plan here?
I like the idea of simmering, like just so we still go over it, we still have it on record, but like we can still, I think since it's not the top one priority, we can still like give it a bit more time for people to think it over. I don't know what you guys think.
And just a general invitation, I think like Hafa mentioned, like it's been there ever since posted. If anyone has like any consideration, any side note, whatever it may be, like feel free to go there and leave it. I think this would be something worth having like prior to I don't know, like a deliberation session, you know, like to not have perhaps, you know, like I don't know if there's a possibility of excessive deliberation, but the time consumption is real, I guess. So would be ideal to have like, okay, just a couple of notes there. We'll revisit it, right? I think it's interesting.
Okay, so as the relator, I have finished writing the proposal that we will vote. And just to remind everyone, we are voting not to make this a final say, but to take this to the whole group. My suggestion as relator is that if this is accepted, we pass it to the group and we vote. And if it is accepted, we can have another round of revisions, but not significant revisions because it will have been approved. Some tweaks that might already have been discussed, so we can have this like spelled out. So just let me share the screen. I use my authority as relator to decide what's up in the final proposal to be voted. Very inspired by Brazilian politics. So this is what we're gonna vote. First, there will be an open discussion for proposals. This is what we talked about. This is not candidacies necessarily. People will air out in a certain time frame that we will determine proposals or strategic ideas that might be point of emphasis during the following chairperson's tenure. So I don't know if tenure is the right word, but you guys understood. This will be like a moment where people will be we can pick the brains of everyone. This was also signal potential interest in being in the CP, but also in participating in the group. I think this will be a very important moment because this is part of the process of the chairperson not being like, I never thought it would be something like that. I think it's actually very abstract, but I think this will be a moment which signals which the chairperson is not like almighty leader, especially because we can just not follow that person. It's very easy. I mean, probably be closer to a high school teacher, the chairperson, or to the Indian chief, indigenous chief. He gives out presents. So I think it's a good idea to have we can have an actual meeting on a Monday meeting before the lottery where we talk about what are our strategic views. So even if this is not written out, even if this is not discussed in the WhatsApp group, people involved in the process will be aware, okay? And it's important also that we determine the period that the CP will work as CP. And I put this here because since we have not decided the time frame, and this is, I think, is a minor issue compared to other issues, I think we can leave this open for the moment. The negative lottery, a person is chosen as the following CP through a door with a range of members. We have not discussed if we are considering everybody or if we're going to say stuff like, are you in the group? If we do a census of the group. I personally would prefer a wide open lottery, but I think we can leave it between wide open lottery and pending a census of the group. This person who's chosen has a predetermined time frame to decide if they are willing to accept and what might be necessary to take on the function, and a period of transition that would be necessary to take on the functions. So 3 steps. What if they want, what they need, and how much time they need. I think, as you all said, this is very important, especially if we are to align our goals for the vision. Perhaps rephrase, a person will be chosen to decide. Okay. Can you edit? Oh, I don't think people can edit, right? Or can they? Well, if you can edit, I would ask you because but I can do it also. To avoid further delay, other people might also be drawn as backups in the case the first one decides not to take the position. And I think it's important that we keep these backups in the same time frame, because this is a process that can drag on. So, I mean, if you want to say no, you can very quickly say, as a backup, you can say, no, I don't want this. I don't think nothing stops someone from doing that. But so just we can not delay the process too much. There will be a period of transition. In this period of transition, the person deals with the current chairperson. Since initially there is no chairperson, they may and should consult people who have the tasks that are currently at hand. So it will be a more decentralized transition, but I think the spirit is the same. Please feel free to edit. The function is a rotating function, and after the predetermined period, a new lottery will occur. Now, before opening for vote, if there are other revisions that are similar to the one that Gabriel proposed, like minor tweaks, but not wholesale changes. Yeah, great. Thanks, anonymous camel. You know, I'm going to have to do something which is going to have, I'm going to have a gavel in a few weeks. I wish I had it here so I could just do the, yeah. So, okay, so let's put up a vote. Can Gabriel, can we, oh, I also can put it. Can we do the vote here on the app?
Yeah, I think everyone can just raise their hand as reaction. And we do like the hand is yes, or we just raise a hand if there's a disagreement.
Yeah, let's
perhaps.
raise hand, but raise hand because it stays fixed. Let's not have reactions. Let's raise our hand. People who are in favor of taking this proposal to the group, raise their hands. Okay, so, well, if you are abstaining,
You're saying no.
at least for this matter. Okay, so we have decided.
And how about should we just add something? If anyone has a quick idea, as just a question, is it are we putting it to a vote and we're gonna tell people, hey, we're voting on this. If it gets 51%, we agree on it being approved, or are we want to put like a higher number of seats in the Senate that need to vote in favor?
Do we vote here?
I don't know.
Who you vote? Like if they are in, will there be an activity? No, no.
We will probably put a vote
Like
on
how far? Yeah, how long and how many? What is a majority, right? Yeah, via the WhatsApp poll thing.
How long? Well, we had talked about 1 week.
Yeah, I think 1 week is good. If we make an effort to make sure we go around and get people to vote and remember them during that week, remind them during the week, you know, like not just let it there and let it disappear. Like everyone collectively try to.
Yeah, we'll send DMs to people like vote, motherfucker.
Also,
and like the STP community or STP English?
No, I think it has to be in the STP community. And can we do polls in the STP community?
I think we have to do two. We have to do one in the English group and one in the Portuguese group. They're the only two groups that have people without intersection, right?
Okay. So I vote in favor of 51%. But I think this is very important. We have to have like if this vote is rejected, does anyone here want to take this?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think that we should have a very high standard of acceptance. You know, I would even put two criteria, like amount of votes. I think if we have you can check now, the STP community has 38 participants. I know many people are STP what do you call it? WhatsApp sassers, right? They are just exist without the Zoe, without the BIOS, right? But still, like more than 10 people, and it should be either, if it's not unanimous, I think it should be pretty high up. I think that this being a legitimate thing, where people
You
abide
think
to it.
you think it should be more than majority or absolute majority?
Yeah, so I don't know. I propose anything, whatever you guys want, but going up on the level of agreement, and also not random at the level of how many people voted. So, we have 13 people in this meeting. I think we should have more than the people in this meeting.
Double.
Impossible. Double is not going to happen. I think
have
the
to-
amount of people, like people who don't watch the group, but like, I don't know, between 15 and 20 people voting, and 2/3. I don't know, something like that. I don't know what you guys think, but just to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can try for 100% minus abstaining votes. So like you can abstain, right?
Mhm.
On the WhatsApp poll. But if you vote no, then you have to state a reason. We have to figure out why somebody voted no, right?
Yeah, so what do you guys think in terms of?
Yeah, just to say, I voted. I voted. I saw the community. I think there are between 23 and 28 active people in the group.
Mhm.
Trying to
Yeah,
be.
so like 20 is about 2/3 of the actives, right? And perhaps 2/3 and 2/3, like 2/3 of the active people plus 2/3 of the agreement. Or should we go for what Dennis said, unanimous minus abstentions, right? So if somebody disagrees, we go back to the drawing board, try to accommodate the disagreement.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should have like differentiate between hard disagreements, I agree, and abstentions.
Okay, so I think that the question is just, is Renzo's proposal 2/3 and 2/3? Anyone against it, or should we go, or anyone prefers what Dennis said, like unanimous for the people who did vote?
Now I'm thinking.
I'm kind of a little bit in the other direction, that I feel like we should have the minimal definition, 50% plus one, and then just kind of see what happens with those results. Like, see if we need to constrict it higher. I can see the argument, and I think we should aspire kind of politically to motivate to hit unanimous, but I also think it's worthwhile to actually like be able to register and then see if we can actually move forward with those. So at least we have the option to kind of like register large disagreements.
Yeah, no, but let's say people would still, it wouldn't be a vote with a yes or no. It would be like, we would still register if it ended up being 50 versus 50, 49 versus 51. But would you go forward as if it has been decided if it's 49 versus 51?
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Okay.
whole thing. Yeah. Like if we want to have like a feedback round, that's fine. But like, to me, that should just be part of the process in the making anyway, right? Like what we're doing right now is the feedback that we're adjusting the proposal. I don't necessarily think we need to like build feedback loops into the election.
Yeah,
itself.
sure. I know. I see. I can see your point there. I also saw Vitor's face when I said unanimous, like, oh my God, this is gonna go.
I'm also getting triggered by unanimous too.
Yeah, sorry guys. No, I'm convinced by what you're saying. So is the middle ground of 2/3. So there's still disagreement, but
I think 2/3 quorum and simple majority for voting. Like that's what you were saying, right, John? Something on that line.
Sorry, can you paraphrase what you thought I was saying?
I mean, I think did you talk about a minimum quorum or not, or just about the simple majority?
I mean, like I'm fine going with 2/3 if that's what the group wants. I just would prefer to keep simple majority. So that
No,
was
no,
the-
no, 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 but that's not my question. Do we have a
Oh.
do you think we should have a minimal quorum or not?
Like the amount of people that
Oh,
vote.
quorum. Yeah, no, I absolutely support quorum. Yes, absolutely.
So like 2/3 quorum and simple majority, was that your position?
Yeah, good old Robert's rules. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so I second John's second, 2/3 quorum and simple majority.
Okay, I can go with that as well.
And I agree with Vitor.
I think the only issue with the quorum thing, I mean, it's just for like using it other times, is that we have a loose definition of like, I mean, if we like kick out the non-active members, then we have, it's dependent on like the scope of like how many people we have. So if we want to have many people, I mean, I guess it's only a problem if we have lots of people in the community which are inactive, and we're trying to go for like filtering towards more active. So it should be easier to get a quorum, right? It's only hard if we start adding people.
The
but-
inactive ones.
Yeah, but which is, I mean, I'm also fine with adding, with not being so strict with adding people in the WhatsApp group. But on the other hand, it's also good to like start filtering out totally inactive people. So I'm just saying that this is sensitive to the way we deal with members in the WhatsApp group. But yeah, we don't.
Yeah, but I think the idea was 2/3 of the active. So it's 2/3 of 28, not 36.
An active being a sort of like subjective count.
Yeah,
of-
I just did like a rough count of people who has gone to meetings and who is active, but for example, might not go to meetings. Like, for example, Alan can't go to the Monday meeting. He might count as an active member. He presented, I mean, just.
Yeah, I mean, let's also remember, let's say we end up saying, okay, this person's inactive, they didn't answer, and we remove them, and 2 minutes later, they send us a message, hey, could you add me back? Just to add them back. It's not like,
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem. This is not like when Google Meet says this person is going to be excluded forever from the meetings you start.
yeah.
But so it's 2/3 from 30. 20 people. Right?
Yeah, 20 people, and then I was convinced by John's argument, at least, about the majority just being 50 plus 1, which means minimally 10 votes yes.
So let's vote on this. Minimum quorum, 2/3 of 30, and simple majority. This is it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so who is in favor of John's position? Raise your hands. No unanimity. Who are the triggered ones? Vitor and John? Okay. So it's decided. You know, I think this is foreigners don't understand the mystique about the voting urn.
The one thing we did right.
Yes. So can't we have another meeting during which we address the concerns behind the non and after reading the proposal? I think this will have to happen. Yes, I agree. I mean, I don't think we should like just pass it through. But I do think like we have to have, yeah, we don't vote with paper here, John. We are civilized. We are first world country. We have like an electronic machine that there are tests to see if people can hack it, and it's impossible to hack it. So this is my suggestion. I think it's important to address there would be no succession final episode in Brazil. That's just a fact because of the voting urn. But like I was saying, I think we can have a discussion. I think this is important. But what can we do to not fall into a rut when we enter this discussion? Because I feel like this is dangerously a process that, like, let's have another meeting for when people, like, I mean, it's an endless cycle. And I understand, I think it's important to address issues. I think we should have a round of revision. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm afraid of this. This is my concern.
Yeah,
Uh,
we
my-
don't want to paralyze. We don't want to paralyze ourselves by waiting for unanimous. So we go with the majority. Then people will hate it because they don't like it, and then they will revise it and improve it over time. But the initial thing we must commit to it, right?
Yeah, and I do think it's like if you take the vote in abstract, it does sound like it's, you know, you're just being posed this question and you need to go with whoever decided, but it's been a long process. I mean, there are many opportunities and it will be revised later on. It's not like, you know, choosing your president for 4 years or something. So I think we did a good job. Like I do think it's late. I mean, if Kyle is up for it, I think he should present the research idea just so we have it. But I think we did a pretty good job. We pretty much went from, you know, we solved this in 2 meetings and a bunch of additional work in between. It's not like it is.
I think this was a very long process. Okay, so
Well then, should we go like for perhaps a quick overview? Again, like I think it's worth mentioning just I guess we'll just take a look at it and let it simmer more. Like we're not voting anything today, right? This will be just like to see and again, like a general invitation toward like to write on it, to put your comment, put your also I think perhaps for I don't know if anyone agrees with me, but like one thing that doesn't happen very often is discussing these things throughout the group, like off out of the meetings, right? Like it's not like the ideal place perhaps, but it would be like any opportunity that's presented to, you know, like throw something out there. I think it's valid, right? Well, let me go for it here. Here. Let's see. Okay. Can everyone see? Okay then. So overall, in light of a lot of what was already discussed, like the opportunity for having more experimentation taking place, and also to be able to delegate that which is delegatable for that matter, having things more organized par excellence, I guess that's where we were heading. So everything here is, as I said before, like very abstract. Nothing here is final, and everything is pretty much up to like a discussion as well. So couple of things that could be the role for a coordinator position would be research support, which I think would be something that everybody would benefit from, especially in light of more people getting in. So someone taking up this position should be able to interact with more than what happens maybe on just a Monday meeting, and being able to outreach perhaps. I saw this as an opportunity to take up a little bit of what we talked about perhaps in the other meeting, which would be like the welcome committee, something like that, taking upon this position to reach out to anyone who's coming, see what their interests are, what they might be able to contribute with, who they're closer to. So this would be something that if we're looking for rotation, high rotation, this everybody would benefit from this. It would obviously create a lot more synergy. Everybody would be talking to everybody more often, and I think that's something beneficial, yeah, from the get-go. Here, thought about disseminating research, so how this might be done differently by different people. So it's, again, not necessarily an obligation, but something to think of. Oh, if you're taking up parts of this position to coordinate, perhaps you might be able to outreach to put some of the ideas out in different places that we wouldn't have thought of before. So maybe this would be something interesting to take up as well. A lot of this is predicated on the idea of the proposal. So how this would take place would be addressed in the proposal. So if we're going to make it like the same process for the central admin in this, I think having the proposal is pretty much the pillar for a lot of what comes. So there's a lot of benefit to it. So possibility of disseminating, how one might do it differently. And then management, which could be interesting in as much as the person taking up this position should be able to know what's going on, or at least have in taking up this task, have the opportunity to do so. So asking around what's happening, interacting with everyone once again, and keeping this. This is already, if I'm not mistaken, this is already exemplified in one of the many documents we have running around. But nonetheless, to have this in view and perhaps be able to propose something different or convert something already existing, this would be interesting as well. So very abstract, very open. That's basically it. Then going to the selection process, we can pretty much cross out what was here, I guess, because if we're going to standardize later, what is proposed for central admin could be proposed here as well. But the main thing would be to see that I think the project presentation here is a lot more essential than it is perhaps for central admin. I don't know if you would agree on that, because this is where one might take place. One might take some of the ongoing research or possible research to different places. This is where experimentation might become interesting. There's probably a lot more lines of possible access. I don't want to sound like a Deleuzian or anything, but it might, right? It might be a possibility here. But anyway, I think the voting is where we have I guess it's where we need most to converge efforts to have that very well determined. Abstracting this for now, since we've already discussed this a lot for the other one, things that I thought of here for the proposal would be a variable term. So I think that if someone's proposing, okay, I'd like to work on a theme, I think that's what Moscardi was asking before. Oh, what about putting some effort into this theme or that theme and propose something like that? Maybe we would have a need for different periods. It wouldn't be as standardized as we might think. So I don't know if that goes for both. I don't know if that's just for here. That's something that we could discuss throughout as this is simmering. Another thing, the funding request. So as we mentioned before, this was something that would need a lot more, I think, synergy with central admin, in as much as finance would be dealt with in one place. I don't think the research coordinator would necessarily, if you take up the position, who is going to, I don't know, work out whether or not you're going to have the funds you need to take up the position. So I think this must be addressed in a different place. So funding request either for central admin or putting this out there during the proposal, but either way, two things can be requested, I think, the funding and talking to Rafa. You mentioned that perhaps some people might need different assistance. So this is something that I don't think we've talked about before, but some people, I remember talking to Fear about this too. Maybe some people, they're not comfortable enough in trying out for this, maybe because it's mainly in English, right? Not everyone has English as first or second language, not even as, let's say, the comfort necessary. So it might be even a thing to like, okay, I'd like to do it. I have great ideas, but I'm going to need some mediation. I'm going to need someone to help out. And I think person should be comfortable enough to put this out there in the proposal. Okay, like English might be an issue for me. I'm not that great with it. I'm not that comfortable. So seek out help where it might be, you know, like, okay, maybe myself, maybe someone else might be open to helping out, and then becomes more and more collaborative, like little by little. The succession we had mentioned, I think that it would be counterproductive in as much as we're thinking about having like a great degree of experimentation. So maybe keeping this now as something not possible, and keeping what Fatima had mentioned before. I think like having maybe at a certain time reviewing everything that was done. I think Fatima and Moscardi mentioned later, like, okay, every year something like that, like revising what worked, what didn't. I think that's always a good overall thing to have planned out beforehand, right? Yeah, I think overall that's it. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add. And once again, the general invitation, like either here or in the WhatsApp group, like it would be nice if everyone felt free to throw some ideas, and we'd make this more in consonance to what appears during the discussion, right? Because like it seems like on the Monday meetings when we get together, there's a lot of things that appear, a lot of things that require more deliberation, and perhaps we could delegate some of that beforehand, right? I think that's it. Just another thing that might be worth mentioning. When I don't know if, like we said, we're going to let this simmer for a while, but maybe just a last remark on the benefits of having a proposal. I think that one thing we can perhaps agree on is that we'd be able to collect a lot more data, as in what some people might have as an idea, what are other places that some people might want to go. And even if the as we mentioned before, a proposal doesn't take flight, or even if someone doesn't want to present a proposal, I think just having this round prior to taking up the position, there's a lot to benefit from it. Again, like it's difficult not to say this without sounding like a Deleuzian, but the possibilities are I don't want to say infinite, but there's a lot of possibilities that take place.
Yeah, thank you for the proposal, Kaio. I agree with everything here. I think the two things, one is, two things I want to talk about. One is the selection process standardization, which Gabriel also made a comment here, and we don't have to go over it again because we already talked about it a lot in the previous discussion. But just like thinking of a way to standardize it. So it's not, so it doesn't make this role seem more exclusive than the other role of central admin. And then the other thing is regarding the funding request, Renzo had asked the question of whether we want to have a common pool for funding both the central admin and the research coordination role. But just those two small points, but overall, I agree with everything in this proposal.
Could we perhaps leave like an asterisk on the voting part and like just I don't know, so we'll later collect this together, I guess. I could talk to Rafa later on, right, Rafa? We see if maybe we make like a general copy of what was proposed there for the voting that we just voted about voting, but then we can maybe leave it separate already for votes to vote on it later. Something like that. Vitor.
So, thanks for the proposal. I think it's very like succinct and clear. I think like we could maybe help make it more like clear. But like we said, there are like three primary responsibilities: research support, dissemination, and management. We could like, I don't know if it's in the document, but we could like collectively like do research support, how it is currently done, more or less, and what the function would change, how would that, so we can like compare, maybe like we did with and the same thing with the dissemination and research. For example, I think like the dissemination, we have like magazine articles, collective magazine articles. We review collectively individual articles made by people of the group. We have study groups. We have like, you could list those things so we can have like an overview of what is specific about research that a responsibility entails. And I think that would help like with the selection process, because if there is an application or project or something, it will be related to like what specifically is being done and what can be different. Like we would have more clear proposals to be made in projects. I think
Sure.
I can help with that, but I think we could maybe talk a bit with the people who like coordinate stuff.
Yeah, Vitor, I was gonna ask if later on we could perhaps talk about that, because like this is the part, for example, where more time with the collective is essential, right, for us to have this data, what has been done, what right, how things have worked so far. I think that would be great. I would really appreciate it.
I'd just like to add one thing. I think the ideas are very good, and it's very good to simmer. So I think there's just one other stuff that I would add for the simmering part, is because I think the point of the, at least how I see it, I mean, people may see it differently, but the point of the research position, it's a position where we take into our hands the fact that grooming a researcher in a political theoretic collective, as such as we are constructing, it's not a given. It's something that people do not know how to do. And I think this appears especially in how we like have difficulty in not only deciding things, but I think like choosing to present stuff, seeing how far you can like take the collective's ideas and add into them. I think these are things that nobody, I mean, we are not born with these abilities. So I just like to like reinforce that it's not a position for someone who is experienced. It's not a position for someone who knows the ins and outs of the group. It may be, but that's not the case. It's something that I think aims to allow us to teach ourselves how we are going to develop. Because some people like have it easier in the sense that they feel more not tranquil, but not tranquil, they feel more at ease with simply like, I'm going to like, I feel okay with taking these ideas and adding into them, but this is not a given, at least not for me. And we also, I think, have the idea, and this is something that, at least for me, it's personally very hard. We also have this idea that the other knows. And like, I think the point of the position is to know that the other does not exist in a sense. So occupying this point of view, I think it also has that pedagogical aspect that is important. Yeah. I can only do this because I read that book by the French psychoanalyst, which is How to Talk About Books That You Haven't Read. So I know that that other does not exist.
Also, in light of what you just mentioned, perhaps there's a point there that I think we didn't stress enough, but it goes in the overall theme of like the possibilities we might have, the different styles of what might be proposed. Like personally, Rafa just mentioned that some people might be more at ease than others. Like that says a lot also about our backgrounds. Like I personally have absolutely no experience in militant work. So that's something that for me personally, I would feel really out of place, and I would need a lot of mediation if I were to like take upon myself any type of interaction with ongoing movements. And I think that's something that everybody can maybe, I don't know, like pinpoint when they're proposing, right? Like some people are better just at perhaps the militant work exactly. Some people really know the ins and outs of how to get research done. I think there's a lot of styles that might go into it, right? So it would be nice to go through the motions with different styles throughout time. Should we end the recording?
Yeah, I'm going to send the link for the WhatsApp group. 1 second. Yeah, you can end the record. Oh, I can end the recording.
You're the host.